Welcome to the home on this first go live. So this is a very exciting and nervous moment for the home. We hope you'll stay with us for the afternoon, and we'll go through with you some of the election results, explain the process, and let's see how the afternoon develops. So I feel I should read out the home statement, and it says simply this: that straight from the heart, right from the streets, we're not polished, but we're passionate. It's all for Ireland by volunteers who care. Stick with us, we're learning as we go. And every step is for our home. So that's what today is about. I suppose we're looking today at the changes. We are looking at what is new. We're looking at where is that coming from. So at the moment, we've had traditional politics for a while. We're representing a different narrative. We believe that the mainstream media is very much censored, and we're coming from a different perspective. So we're looking at both the mainstream, the traditional parties, the establishment parties. We're looking at the whole electoral process, but we're particularly interested in the changes, what Sinn Féin seats will do, what the left will do, how they've responded to the Palestinian situation, and also the rise of the right. So at the moment, the right, as they're called, have no elected representatives at all. So that's where we're starting from. We're going to keep an eye on that situation and see, does that change in the day? Is this going to be a historic moment for nationalists? So stay with us today. What we're going to do today is we're going to go over the big picture. We're going to go through some of the details of what the very complicated process of elections, tallying, counts, and getting candidates over the line. What is that process? Explaining it as much as we can to the ordinary people. Very shortly, we're going to go live to one of the counts. We're going to go to Waterford with Garage Kelly, and we're going to get an impression from the polling stations, from the count centres. What is the feeling? What's happening? From people who have been at this for a while. We're also going to go later to Garage O'Colman, and we're going to talk about the European elections, about the European Parliament, about the what we know very little about is what are the groupings in the European Parliament? What are what happens once we elect our European candidates? Where do they go? What's it all about there? So we're going to go over the establishment parties, how many candidates they have, what we might expect to see happening, and we go over how many candidates are running in the locals. And as the results come in, we're going to go over the elected, over who's got over the line and who's become elected, and the process that leads up to that. So first, we go live to Waterford, to Garrow Joe Kelly.
Hello, David. I'm here in Waterford in Carriganore, outside of the Town Centre. And I have with me here John D. Walsh, who's running for the Irish People political party. It's a brand new party and it has candidates running all over the country. And John D. Walsh is one of the candidates down here, one of three candidates down here in Waterford. So, John, can I just ask you, what made you decide to run in these local elections here in Waterford?
Well, I was motivated to run because of I was appalled by the when I studied very closely the excess deaths nationally and then the sudden deaths locally, and I discovered that there were no excess deaths. The first year that excess deaths went down was actually 2020, since 2012, and then once the vaccines came in, they went up, 17, they went up 14%, then 17% in 2022, and then 24% in 2023. And then the sudden deaths, I went to every RIP going back from 2018 to now. And I remember going up to, we were up to a court case where the Virgin Media were, and I was saying to the girl, this journalist, about the excess deaths, and she said, "Oh, just when people, there were no excess deaths because well, there were less excess deaths because there were no traffic accidents." But I didn't find a single person that died from a traffic accident in the 6 years that I looked through the system. But the sudden deaths then, there were 28 in 2019, and then 2020 there were 39, and then 21 there were 121, and then 141 the following year, and they were heading for 345 in 2023. So this couldn't be a coincidence. And I had a 100-page document with loads of videos and all sorts of references, which was very large file, 100-page file. I sent to all the TDs, all the senators, all the MEPs, and most of the councillors. Not a single one of them even replied to me. You would get a reply, for instance, a TD, you get the secretary say acknowledging what you sent in, but that's it. So the media wouldn't take it. So why was this? This I put actually those figures on my election leaflet. So in other words, to get that out to the people in Waterford, to alert them to what's going on, because if we don't, I met one woman whose son was only 46. He was in the house one night and he said, "Oh look, mother, I've had me to go up and take a rest." It was about 8 o'clock. When she up at 9:30, she found him dead, and she was just completely, talked to her since, so heartbroken, just can't explain how this happened, and
Just would it be fair to say that you chose to stand as a political representative for your district because you don't feel that that the Irish people are being represented by necessarily by the politicians nowadays or in the media?
yes, there's a media blackout on everything, and like if we say in this election, for instance, I was able to get 100 words into one local paper in the Munster Express, a fair dues to them. Now the other local paper wouldn't even publish the list of candidates, right? They would produce nothing. They would give me nothing. I wanted to give a 2-page splash to other candidates like the Social Democrats, no problem. And supplement, supplement on the local elections. What kind of supplement is that? And then the local radio wouldn't take me either. And there was no debate. There was no debate on the local radio between the councillors either.
So would you say like you're representing or you're running for the Irish People political party? So that's a right of centre or right wing political party would be considered by especially by the mainstream media to be so. would you think that people who are kind of right of centre or to the right of the political divide are being, kind of not being given a voice in the modern, political arena? Would that be fair to say?
Well, you see, we say 20, 30 years ago, I'd be considered centre, possibly right of centre. Um, because I believe in tradition. I believe in conserving the values that we have, and I also believe that our parents, grandparents, great grandparents made great sacrifices for us to have this country we have, and everything was passed down to us in trust that we would pass it down as well to our grandchildren and great grandchildren. But I see appalling things happening in terms of the country at the moment, and unless something is done quite soon, we are heading for sharp decline. But there's a serious moral decline anyhow in so many in many spheres. I mean, you see all these transgender flags and LGBT flags and so on around the place. I mean, we've one day for Christmas Day, we've one day for Easter Day, we've one day for Labour Day. As we're we don't even have an Independence Day. We could never get agreement on what that day should be, and yet we have a whole month for giving over to what's called pride. And pride is one of the seven deadly sins. Pride is the opposite of pride is humility, not shame. And yet we have no month of humility. And why would public bodies be promoting degeneracy? I mean, I was always in favour of lifting laws against people who have a homosexual inclination, because I think that's governments can't be involved in morality in that sense. People have a right to their privacy and so on. But now we've gone to the totally other extreme, where they're promoting something that is we should be promoting high moral values, because if you have high moral values in a community, you have less crime. People don't steal, people don't murder, and so on. We should be promoting what is good instead of promoting something that is bad. Mhm.
And just one more question then. You yourself are an expert tally man and led to believe. Do you have any? Can you give any indication? Do you think about how more kind of nationalist candidates are doing here in Waterford, or if they're doing well at all?
Oh, well, I mean, there's one girl I actually persuaded to run, and she's doing very well apparently. I'm not doing so well according to tallies here, but the tally was quite difficult actually, because you have the mixture of the European papers in with the local papers, so it's hard to tell it as yet. And we have said, I know another candidate, Kenny, who has done just about the same way. He's done the same, a little bit better than I did apparently. I don't know about the other two now, the one in Lismore and the one in Port Lowell, but I mean, it'll come out in the washer later in the day, But I mean, you see, you're fighting globalism, and also paradoxically, you're fighting localism in local elections. There are local issues, right? Say, I said clearly, I'm not a pothole and pavement candidate, right? I went out there because I felt it was an urgent need to draw attention to these huge issues, where people are not being told the dangers. People are not being told what's coming down the line, and people. It's a platform to speak out. That I use it as a platform to speak out. That was my reason for going.
Yes, thanks very much. That's John D. Walsh. He's running here. He's from District Waterford East here in Waterford. And we also have another candidate. We'll be talking to her in a few moments, but I'll just hand it back to you then in the studio, David.
Thanks, Garage. Yeah, we can have an overview of what is the state of the parties at the moment, what is each party hoping to achieve, or what can we expect to happen, and we can look over a couple of constituencies after that. So at the moment, in most count centres, the tallying is happening or has been wound up, and the process of the first count, second count, third count, leading up to the election of whoever gets the quota or is elected in absence of reaching the quotas. So that process will happen all through the afternoon. We can expect by the late afternoon we'll have a good idea of how everybody's doing, how that the public mood is reflected in these elections, what the changes are, and so on. So Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael went into these elections. Fianna Fáil with 279 seats, Fine Gael with 248 seats, Sinn Féin with 78. Now, that was 5 years ago. So, in the meantime, Sinn Féin, over the last 5 years, has a much greater share of the vote, which is falling at the moment. A lot of people are surprised that Sinn Féin are increasing their seats. But what we have to bear in mind is that 5 years ago, Sinn Féin had a very bad local election campaign. They went into it with 81 seats and came out of it with 78 seats. Since then, they have been polling well above Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, who, as you can see, have both 200 odd seats each. So despite the fact that they've had significant falls in polling, we're likely to see a good rise in Sinn Féin's local election candidates elected. So who else have we got? We have all the other parties represented as well. We have, in the state at the moment, there are 949 councillors, I believe, and they are elected to 31 local authority constituencies. So this is the big picture. I mean, not everybody has a good idea of what this is all about. There are a lot of people, on account of the public mood, who are taking an interest in politics for the first time sometimes. And this is quite a difficult process and a hard one to understand. So in going into the details of the big picture of the framework that this election is happening, we're hoping to make it easier for the first time person who's interested in politics to get a grasp of what this is all about. So there are 160 constituencies within those 31 local council areas, local authority areas. And as I said, there are 949 councillors that will be elected today. So running for those for all those council seats are 365 Fianna Fáil candidates, 339 Fine Gael candidates, 335 Sinn Féin candidates. So that's a lot more than the 78 candidates that they have elected at the moment. 129 Greens, 109 Labour, 532 independents. Social Democrats are running 77 candidates. Aontú are running 66. Independence Ireland are running 60. The Irish People are running 55. People Before Profit are running 53. The Irish Freedom Party are running 28 candidates. The National Party are running 15 candidates, and the Ireland First are running 8 candidates, or something similar to that number. There are some smaller parties around specific issues, but we haven't lifted them here. So we might have a look at some individual constituencies and just have an overlook at what's happening at these places. So maybe we'll go to Balbriggan first? No. Oh no, we're going back to we're going back to Garage O'Kelly in outside Waterford, and we have a candidate, an independent candidate, and we're going to hear from himself or herself about how the election's going for them.
Hello, David. Yes, welcome again to Waterford, and I'm here with Karen Halahan. She's an independent candidate. She's running in the and Karen, can you tell me what made you decide to run in these local elections?
Um, one of the first things that I felt after the referendum was that there had been no representation at government level on the no side of that referendum, and so many people voted no, but there was also a low poll count because people didn't understand what was going on and didn't know what way to vote. But they spent 24 million on that referendum, and there was no information in regards to why not to vote yes, or what the maybe the issues might be in regards to. So it wasn't balanced, and it definitely wasn't balanced from a government point of view, and it wasn't balanced from a referendum council point of view, or the referendum committee. um, we got posters and we got leaflets, but we had to pay for them, and we had to ask people if they would buy a poster just to be able to put up a presence in the Waterford area in regards to why to vote no in that referendum. That was the first thing that happened. The other thing was the absolute um, uncontrollable immigration that is happening in our country. The amount of just the amount of ordinary people who are being supplanted by migrants, and they're not even speaking English, but small villages being absolutely desecrated, services being overwhelmed by people that are just getting medical cards without even being assessed. There's a two-tier system going on. Our young people can't even be housed. There was an instance where a woman, a mother, a family basically in Ardmore, who had been on the waiting list for 12 years, 13 years, and they were coming to the top of the list, and they had got word that they may be getting a house. So they were in rented accommodation, and the accommodation was temporary. It was a holiday home that the owners were taking back for the summer. So from June to September, that family was homeless basically, but they were always vulnerable to homelessness because they had nowhere else to go, and they were depending on she was depending on her parents to be able to have accommodation in their house, which would be a 2-bedroom house. Anyway, just got the long story short, 2 weeks before June, which was the time that she had to get out of her own house, she got word that that house had gone to a Ukrainian family, and she was back again and didn't know where she was going to go. She had to plead with her mother that could she have a loan of the sofa, to just that herself and her 2 small boys. Her husband wasn't able to be accommodated there because her father was sick. On the basis of, if that is not homelessness, and if that is not emergency, from a point of view of whatever definition that they need in the housing department in regards to when somebody is in urgent need of housing, that is what I'm standing for, and that's what I want to see happen. It will. I want to see definitions of things being changed that little bit, so that there is at least the consideration of the Irish on an equal platform to those of the migration. I'm not necessarily putting the Irish first, but in some cases that should actually happen. And so from that point of view, we are losing our country to people we do not know, who do not speak our language and do not have our culture. We are being there's an implantation happening here. There's from a point of view of the amount of uncontrolled young men, undocumented. We have no knowledge of what they're capable of or what they are about. The amount of criminal and abductions and possible violence against our own homeless people on the streets I mean, it's rising and rising and rising. It is worrying for anybody in this nation. Just and Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, and even Sinn Féin, they all want that open border. We need to close that border, and it needs to be it needs to be a case of emergency. From a point of view, we are in a state of emergency. I don't care what anybody says. So that's what I'm standing for. I'm only one, but there's plenty others that would stand as well as independents, and it'll be interesting to see. But at the moment, it looks like um, business as usual. The local elections have gone by personality rather than party. So local personalities have chopped the polls, I'd say again. That's fine. They're decent people, but they follow our party politics. So I'm not too sure how we're going to actually amend this, how we're actually going to adjust to ourselves in this, like, and who's going to stand up for us and who's going to talk for us.
Very good. Can I just ask you, now, this wasn't your first time running, was it?
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, this is my second time running. Yeah.
And can I just ask you then, how did you, do you have any preliminary kind of results about how did you get on this time around?
I don't have the exact figures, but I'm not at the I'm not at the lowest. I'm hitting middle ground, but middle to low rather than middle to high. I'm probably one of two independents that may be fighting for the last seat. But it depends on transfers, I'd say. And I don't know what that'll be, but I will live in hope, but it's we'll just see what happens. Yeah.
And just when you were talking about all this the mass immigration that's happening, and Irish people, there's a homelessness crisis, a housing crisis, and while we're being told by the mainstream media and by the politicians that don't worry about it, it'll be fine. So effectively, we're being gaslit. Despite the evidence in front of our eyes, we're being told that what we're seeing is not true. But if you believe that would make you technically, according to the mainstream media, a far right candidate. So how would you describe, if somebody was to call you a far right candidate, how would you counter that?
How would I counter it? All I would say is I'm not far wrong. So on the basis of it, because what's in front of your eyes is real, and from that point of view, whether it is far right or I don't know about these labels. So though I have seen so many people who are kind of considered mainstream, and I wouldn't agree with them at all, and I'm not alone in not agreeing with them. So I think they're all labels, and I think they're all pushing an agenda from a point of view. Those who are dictated, like in the sense of pointing the finger, there's three fingers pointing back at them. That's all I would say. And so they need to look at the reality of the situation. We only have a short time until this actually overwhelms our whole system, our whole economy, our whole ability for our young people. We have the largest, youngest population in Europe, and we are leaving them go. Like, what are we doing? We won't get them back. They will have to find a home somewhere else. That is a tragedy. That is not what we worked for, and that's not what my generation worked for, and it's not what my father's generation worked for. And it wasn't that what we fought for. Like, we want our young people back, and we want homes for them and houses for them and a future for them, and we want to see them where they have their own families, and that there is an education system that um, we can actually both admire but also trust. That the other thing that I stand for is that there should be no indoctrination of children, not by a long shot. And this new curriculum and the social and political and subject that's coming in, the SPHE um, subject that it is. But there's a new there's a new book coming out, and there is actual 8 pages of pornography in that for primary school children. People, wake up to this, because it's your child, on that basis. But it's so wrong. So
Thank you very much. That is Karen Halahan. She's an independent, running for an independent seat here in Dungarvan in Waterford. So and the count continues here in Waterford. It's not over by any means yet. And so now I'll hand you back to David in the studio.
Thanks, Garage.
That's great.
So I'll just run over what we're hoping to do here today. We're hoping for people who are trying to work the election process out, let's have a look at some of these constituencies and run through them, see what's happening, see if we take a few of them and go over them, we can get an impression what's happening. We can go to Balbriggan, and here we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 candidates running. Now up on the screen there's only listed 2, 4, 6 of them, but independents, there are in fact 2, 4, 5 independents running. Anate Alaska and 3 others. If you have a look, Fine Gael is polling at, or this is a tally. So I'll explain about the tally. The tally is what happens in the count centres as the votes are counted. These are not exact figures. These are not results. They are simply as the votes are placed down on the table by the counters, tallymen are able to look over the barriers in the count centres and catch a glimpse of each ballot paper as it goes down, and they mark on a clipboard what the vote was, who it was for, and so these tallies would be typically run by the political parties, particularly Fine Gael, Greens, Labour, Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil. And these tallies are quite accurate, certainly enough to give you an impression of how things are going. So this is the tally, and I believe it's a full tally from Balbriggan. Balbriggan there. Fine Gael, 8.9%. So not a great result for Fine Gael in Balbriggan. The Green Party is on 8%, which I think they had a Green Party candidate elected in the recent by-election. So Greens are very strong in Balbriggan following the last Green Party campaign, the school strikes and all that. Labour very strong. In fact, Labour coming out the highest on 12.6%. Sinn Féin on 11.6% in a Dublin constituency. I don't know how happy they'll be with that. Fianna Fáil on 6.4%. They had a bad election in Dublin the last time out, and they do seem to be struggling to get up again. And the big change here is the Irish Freedom Party on 4.3%. So that is John Oakes. What we're seeing is that the nationalist parties in the last election, particularly the general elections, because there was very few nationalist candidates from Irish Freedom Party, Irish People, National Party and Ireland First. In fact, I think there was only 2 of those parties, IFP and the National Party, running. So that's a big jump from them. So the Nationalists are on the pitch. They're on 4.3% in Balbriggan. So I think we're going back to the count centre in Waterford. I think Garage O'Kelly has somebody else to introduce us to. Have we got audio? Garage, yeah.
Yep. Technical difficulties.
Yep, you're with us now.
Okay, thanks, David. Yeah, I'm here outside of the Waterford Councillor again. I'm here with Melissa O'Neill. She's a former Kilkenny, South Kilkenny County Councillor. She got elected. She was a former member of Sinn Féin, but then she became independent, and now she's running again as an independent. She has since won a seat. Before the last elections, you won a seat as an independent, and you're running again as an independent. Is that correct?
Yes, I was independent from 2016 to 2019 in South Kilkenny, so I did a lot of work on the ground there. And I'm in Ferrybank, which is bordering Kilkenny Waterford, so I've still been working very much with Waterford Council, Tipperary Council, Wexford Council. I also stood in the by-election in Wexford, so I'm really working on more a regional area because all the funding comes in regionally, more so than county by county. So I'm very much working, and all my work is based on regional projects for the area, both in health, development, housing. I am very, very strong and very hard-lined on the immigration of what's coming into our local towns and villages all over the country. You know, the upset of our local communities and the lack of communication within the council and the people has just been absolutely disgraceful. And just, you know, to be that voice for the people in local communities. Community development has been my major. You know, I've helped develop a playground that we wait. I've spent 12 years just trying to get that funding down for that local community service and a playground. So Ferrybank is right, you know, on that borderline of Kilkenny and Waterford, and my dad is originally Waterford born, so I've quite an amount of family here. So I'm delighted to stand on a nationalist stand as an independent and give that voice to the people that they feel, you know, the party is over and the parties have had their chance in this country. And there is, as we can see here today, a great rise in the votes for independence, both here in Waterford and all over the country. And just proud to be here today.
Yeah, very good. Now, Melissa, how do you think? Now, this is not your first time. You're a veteran at this. How do you think you'll do in this election?
I came in very late to it. I was just hoping to stand in the general election, but there is a huge wave here in Waterford, upset over the Green Party and the taxes. Sinn Féin have got quite a hit, which I think was deserved. The people have given all these people a chance for a very long time, and this is a very fresh new wave for independence here in Waterford and throughout the country. So I'm glad to be on that wave. No matter what the outcome today, I will still be standing in the general election, independent, nationalist independent. And, you know, my whole campaign is about putting the interests of the Irish first. You know, we see the housing lists, and I've sat on a housing policy committee. I've seen where they've designed for less housing to be built in areas like where we had 20% of every developer, 20% had to go to social housing. That was voted on at every single local level to be reduced to 10%. We need to get this back up. If we need those houses, we have to build them. And it has to be social housing on social land.
That's great. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's great. That's Melissa O'Neill, an independent candidate running here in Waterford. And I'm told as well, David, that the count won't start here until 5 o'clock. They've only just separated the European and the local votes, so they won't start counting here until 5 o'clock. So a bit late here. And I'll hand you back to you now in the studio, David. Thank you.
Thanks, Garage. And I believe what Garage means by that is that there is when the votes come in, they're separated, and you see the votes, the local the local ballots are separated from the European ballots, and the tallymen get a chance to glimpse those ballots as they go down. That's the tally, that's the result we've got already, but the count itself hasn't happened. So the actual counters in the centre will start counting the ballots, and it's at that point that you will get first count results, second count results, and so on, and the tallymen will get another chance to fine-tune their understanding of what's happening in the count centres. So let's see, I think we're going to go to Lucan next, staying in Dublin. We're going to see what's happening with all the, just take a look at a few constituencies and get an impression from around the country exactly what is happening. Let me see now. I'm gonna, okay, I think we've got it. So this is Lucan, and I'll take a look at it now in a minute. We had Balbriggan we just done, and I'll see, can I find Lucan here on my screen. Let's see. I'll come back to I'll come back to the to looking for Lucan on my screen, but let's go over it on the from the point of view of the parties. Very different story from Balbriggan. See, the Fine Gael's vote is holding up very well there. A new Taoiseach, who the poster says is a new energy, is what the impression that the at least 24% of the voters in Lucan are acknowledging. So Fianna Fáil, 3.2%, not really recovering in Dublin at all. Labour on 7.1%. Social Democrats on 3.4%, People Before Profit on 3.3%, Green Party on 5%, Sinn Féin on 8%, which isn't a huge result at all. And finally, the Irish People candidate, I caught a glimpse of it there. It was on 2.3%. So, yeah, we're seeing a range of results for nationalist candidates from 1 and 2% all the way up to, 6 and 7%. There are also, and we haven't seen them so far, but there is also right-leaning parties such as Aontú and Irish Independence Ireland, and they're also making an impact on some of the constituencies. But it very much depends on who is running where. As in all these things, if there's no candidate, there's no one to vote for. So in some of these constituencies, we'll see that there has been no challenge to the establishment made at all. And in others, we'll see we'll see different candidates making these challenges. So let's have a look, see how I get on with the next constituency. So we're I'm not able to get that up on the screen at all. It's behind a paywall, so I won't be able to. Now, in Lucan, I believe the candidate is Robert. Yeah, so I won't be able to get that information up. Let me think now. Lucan. We've got Lucan at last. So we'll go over Lucan again if we can get Lucan up on the screen. So there we go. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 odd candidates here. We've got the Irish People candidate is Robert Coyle, and he has 2.3%. So when you compare the parties, you see Fine Gael doing well, getting about quarter of the results. A spread of different candidates. The smaller parties like Social Democrats, People Before Profit, Green, Sinn Féin, and now, Sinn Féin wouldn't be a smaller party, but certainly a challenger to the two traditional parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and now a plethora of different parties challenging with ideas, challenging the agenda and challenging the narrative. So the Irish People on 2.3%, considering that, as I said earlier, the last time out, 5 years ago, there were only two nationalist parties. There was the Irish Freedom Party and the National Party, and I'm not even sure if those two were actually fully formed at that point. And we didn't get any councillors out the last time, or the Nationalists got no councillors the last time. This time we've got 2.3%, which is a big step up from those results, and even from the elections to the Dáil, where Nationalists as a whole really only got 0.5%. We're seeing a quadrupling and even more than that of the nationalist vote up till now. So let's see what else we'll do. Yeah, wrap it up. Okay, so we're going to continue to bring you results and interviews from around the country. In about an hour's time, we're going to leave you for a little while. As I said, to round up what we did today, or just in the last hour, we gave an overview of the Irish political scene at the moment going into these elections. A brief look at how many seats the big parties, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin have. Why Sinn Féin is going to get a good few extra seats. The reason for that was that they had a very poor election 5 years ago. So even though Sinn Féin's vote is dropping fairly substantially over the last month or two, they are in a much better place than they were 5 years ago in terms of the public vote. We had a look at the new parties, how many councillors are contesting for how many seats, and we talked about what we were hoping to cover today. We wanted to say, particularly focus on the new challenges, what's different, what's changing in Irish politics. There's plenty of media covering the established viewpoint. We're hoping to look at the people who have experienced a bit of censorship. We're hoping to look at nationalists and also right parties, including keeping an eye on how Aontú and Independence Ireland are doing. We're looking at trying to quantify what percentage of the population are participating in the rise of the right. We want to see, will nationalists achieve any breakthrough in terms of getting their first elected representative? And we want to see, to some degree, where that's coming from. I suppose to some degree, who are the losers in this election, who will lose seats, and who are gaining them. So stay with us, keep an eye on the home over the coming hour or two. Certainly in the next hour, we'll be back again with more reporting and keeping you up to date on the developments from the count centres, from the results all over the country. Thanks very much for tuning in with us, and do comment on the live video, and we'll interact with you there, and certainly raise any of those questions or ponder those questions with you that you might be raising. And stay tuned with us on the home. Keep an eye on us. We'll be back intermittently over the coming hours, and hopefully we'll be able to give you something every hour. Okay, thanks very much for tuning in with us, and we'll see you very shortly.